Hi, this is the CAMPS Emerging Technology Groups with the second part of cybersecurity. And today we are working again with Dave Henderson, the president and co-founder of CyberStreams. CyberStreams provides IT services for manufacturers in the Pacific Northwest. Dave, thank you again for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. So we've been talking a lot, Jake and I and the rest of the group, and the common question that's coming up in camps is CMMC. And so we were doing our due diligence, trying to find some research, find some good speakers. And Dave, it was very impressive, like what we've talked with you in the past. But I would like you to start off with telling a story that you shared with me about the espionage of attacks that China has been successful in the US and why CMMC is becoming important.
Yeah. I don't know if I told you this story, but I sat on a panel with two guys from the FBI and one from the FCC. And they kept saying China over and over again. And when I presented at PNA's Cybersecurity Symposium here a few weeks ago, I pulled up this slide that says People's Republic of China, and it's a quote from Colin Kahl. He's the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. And he said, "It means that China is the only country that can pose a systematic challenge to the United States in the sense of challenging us economically, technologically, politically, and militarily." It's important to be clear about this. China wants to become the only superpower. And that only happens if we stop being a superpower. At the symposium, 4 different presenters in their prezos pulled up a picture of a US jet and a Chinese jet side by side, and they were carbon copies. The FBI agents were talking about people walking into factories in China that were right down to the labeling on dials was identical to our factories. CMMC, Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, is born out of the need to stem the tide of outflow of our intellectual property to China.
So let's.
I missed one point. Sorry, there is those presenters, right? A couple of them commented on the fact that not only did China duplicate the best parts of our jets, they also duplicated the flaws, right? So they're copying us right down to where the size and position of rivets, and it's insidious.
Amazing. So the cybersecurity maturity model, those of us in the industry were probably familiar with NIST 800 and ITAR. And can you, what is cybersecurity and how do, or CMMC, and how do we differentiate that from the acronyms that the rest of us are used to?
Yeah, you know, I'm sure many of the people listening to this have got bid requests and they say NIST 800, 171, or DFARS or ITAR, any of that sort of stuff. That's all going to go away, and it's all going to be CMMC. I'd mentioned, I like to talk about Mark Berman. Mark is the CEO and founder of FutureFeed. FutureFeed is a phenomenal software for aiding in certification. I think that kind of software is a must, and I believe FutureFeed is the best that's out there. Mark is in the DC area and interacting with you know, all kinds of important folks. One of the things he shared with me is that Biden has ordered every federal agency to come up with a cybersecurity policy, and they all pretty much are just going, hey, if CMMC is good enough for DoD, it's good enough for us. There's been some rumors that CMMC might go away or get changed. Not true. It is where we're going today. During Mark's presentation, he was talking about how they've just conducted the very first audit. So up till today, you could say, I'm good, and you're okay. Next year, that's not going to be the case. You're actually going to have to hold up to the scrutiny of auditing.
In the first part that we talked about cybersecurity, you were talking about how when Target was hacked, it was done by a vendor of theirs, and that's how they got the backdoor access to this. So yep. I'm assuming that when you're working with the DoD, it's not necessarily some of the top tier 1 vendors. I'm guessing that this is something that was probably trickled down as well. So is it safe to assume that the security compliance is going to be something that's going to get pushed further and further out down the supply chain?
Yeah. You know, I've told you before, right? I'm a business owner. I like hobnobbing with business people and stuff, and I know this topic just well enough to do a recording. I got smart guys behind me that really know how all this works. But I think it's really simple. CUI, controlled unclassified information. If you, I keep quoting Mark Berman, but he said during a presentation, if you can keep that out of your company, then good for you, great, right? Go to whoever it is that's requiring you to work on that and look at it in their facility, figure out what you need to do and go back. But if in the next 3 to 6 months, you think CUI is going to be inside of your facilities in one form or another, then start now, because you won't be ready and you're going to lose on bids. So that's the key. If you got to touch CUI in any way, shape, or form, then you need to be doing the right things to be compliant with CMMC. And it's a journey. You don't have to get it all right away. You need to show that you're on the right path today.
Okay. So when is this mandate supposed to go into effect?
You know, technically today, right? Today, you need to have a cage code. You need to have your system security plan. We often say SPURS score, right? You need to have your plan of action and milestones, and we see POAMs, right? So there's a self-attestation that gets in there, but if you have your SPURS score and your POAMs, then you are compliant today. There's some debate as to when the actual auditing will start, and a lot of people think it'll get pushed off. There are multiple milestones with full compliance and full adoption of CMMC across the DoD, and the DoD supply chain is expected to be complete by 2025. So there's a lot of runway.
Makes sense. What about the? Oh yeah, go ahead, Jake.
I was going to say there's a lot of runway, or it feels like that. And then from what we've done in researching the CMMC path and journey that we are on, is that it is a long process. It is not a couple months and you've got it. If you're starting with a small company and limited resources, and you have just some very basic, you have basic cybersecurity practices in place. Going down the CMMC path is an involved process, and it requires help and software and dollars and, back to Dave's comment in the previous segment, kind of cultural shifts in mindset. It takes all of those things.
You know, there's a phrase that I've heard and used a million times in IT. That's simple, but not trivial. There are things we do that I might charge a client $10,000, and it's simple. We can get it done, no problem. There's a lot of work behind it, right? No doubt going down this path is going to require leadership, right? We talked in our last recording, we talked about, hey, what needs to happen? It needs to be a top-down cultural thing. You see this circle all the time, right? And it's got all these steps you take to get there and everything. And right at the top, it says culture, people, process, technology. As much as I'd like to convince everybody it's a technology problem, you should hire me and I'll do everything for you. It's much more about culture and people and process. One thing, I would add to this is, I was calling it the wild, wild west, but I'm not sure that's the right way to describe it. There is, the biggest estimate I see right now is there are 300,000 businesses that if they don't get to their SPURS score and POAM this year, they're in big trouble, right? 300,000. There's a C3PAO. There's like 30 that are candidates for that. And, just the whole system's not ready for it. But what is ready for it is a whole bunch of opportunism. So one of the things I'm seeing is folks coming out and they're offering to get you there. And it just starts with a $15,000 investment and we'll be on our way. And as soon as you finish the $15,000 investment, Then you find out the next $350 an hour. Quite often I see folks saying it's impossible to know how much time and effort it's going to take to help you get there. So I can't give you an accurate estimate. I can just come in and work for you hourly. And I'm seeing rates that range from $250 to $450 an hour. And, Ben, we were talking about this the other day. What I'm seeing a lot of is the only discussion is how to get your entire facility CMMC compliant from end to end. Everybody, everything, you got to get there all the way. What we're finding is quite often you can designate a smaller number of people that will touch the CUI, and then you can use an enclave solution. I'm very much behind a company called Beryllium that I think just does a wonderful job of this. I have a client that's using it. This client actually wants to get CMMC compliant across their whole facilities. They grow and change. They want to be able to cover all of it. But, they were able to get 100% compliant right away by putting their CUI in this enclave and then ensuring those 7 people in their organization are the only ones that can access it and deal with that CUI. So there's some smarter ways to get there that keep the costs down. But this is a multi-year investment in culture, time, and money to get there. And I don't think anybody can look you in the eye and honestly tell you how much that's going to be. They haven't even figured out how to do the audits yet, right?
Yeah.
They might very well come back and say, "Oh, we're going to push it out. Now it's going to be 2026." There's a lot of uncertainty in this, growing and changing environment. But as a citizen in the United States of America, I'm glad they're doing it. It's important.
Yeah, I agree. No, I'm just trying to think of myself like in the mindset of the camps manufacturers that we have. If I don't have an extensive IT department, or if my IT department is basically limited in resources, if I wanted to go the route of CMMC, is this something that I could put on the shoulders of my IT guy, or do I need to bring somebody in like a consultant? Are the resources out there that would be able to have my staff accomplish this, or do I need to hire somebody new? Do I need to find somebody? And if I do, what role am I looking for? Or like, where do I start?
Yeah, any of those things. That in my mind, that's very much, it depends. That I'm partnered with Impact Washington in delivering CMMC consulting with folks, and so I've got a, full disclosure, I got a dog in that fight. Here's where my mindset is on it. It starts with the CEO, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to believe in this. You have to appreciate it, and you can't outsource ownership of your culture. You can't outsource your leadership, right? You got to do that. You got to do that, right? Now, let's say you're a 300-person company. Maybe you stand up as a CEO and say to everybody, this is important. This is critical to the future of our business. And then you designate one of your VPs as the sponsor, the owner of that program. And then you give them all the support that they need, right? One of the things that I'm really pushing folks to, I'm a big fan of Impact Washington. What NIST has done with the Manufacturing Extension Partner Network is phenomenal. And NIST currently has some really great training. You can actually go into a 30-minute training designed for executives to kind of get your head in the game a little bit there. There's a lot of really great training in there to get you to understand the challenge, the terminologies, what it means, right? So CEO, educate yourself. Pick a business leader to be in charge of this thing, to own it from end to end, right? And then I mentioned to you that we're about to hire a new engineer who comes out of the industry, who's gotten his company to where it needs to be. If you're a big enough company, maybe you have a full-time employee. I have one client that they own 7 different businesses. I think there's 200 or 300 people total throughout them. They brought in a CMMC expert. He's not a technologist. He's a security expert, and he's running the program. He's been given a tremendous amount of authority and support, right? The CEO pats him on the back and says, this is the guy that's going to keep us there, right? But what if you're a 15-person company, right?
Mhm.
And you got 3 people that need to touch CUI. Then looking for help is a great way to go. And I would push those people towards Impact Washington. They have a lot of resources. They have various resource partners and some good programs to help with that. I think that's a good place to start for a smaller business. I'm always happy to chat with people about it. You can certainly push people my way if they want to talk a little bit about where they're at and how they get there.
So then one more thought that I have on this one is, if the government is making this a mandatory thing, and I'm curious if you know of this, is there opportunities, do you know of grants that would assist manufacturers in this, or are there organizations that are supporting this? Because I would think that if let's say the Pacific Northwest was aggressively pursuing CMMC, I would feel like that would be a boom in the economy for federal contracts. So I'm just curious, have you heard of anything like that?
Yeah, Impact Washington.
Okay.
They have a grant right now, a CARES grant that I believe those funds are dried up. And so there might be a little pause here as they're working on another grant that
Okay.
they're expecting to get closed between now and this fall. So I'm not aware of other organizations that are providing grants. NIST MEP has been around for a long time, and they're the ones that are pushing those grants out.
Okay.
I think the
I know there's been some local organizations, some state help, some things like that. And I'd again direct you to Impact Washington because they're dialed into all those partners and know where they're at. I mean, the folks over Damon, Nick, Sarah, Dave Nearsher, those guys live and breathe to help manufacturers out, and they stay really dialed into what's available.
Yeah, I can speak from experience. We worked with Impact Washington, and they're excellent to work with. I believe the Department of Commerce, the Washington State Department of Commerce, has some additional funding set aside for this type of work, and that's separate from Impact Washington. And I think there's kind of an equivalent organization down in Oregon, if you're in the Oregon area, to Impact Washington that acts similarly.
I know Impact Washington serves as kind of a master MEP for the surrounding area. So they have, I did a call where Alaska, Idaho, Utah, Montana, several other states were all pulled in. So there's quite a network there. So yeah, if you're listening to this and you're in Alaska or Idaho or Montana, there you have an MEP available to you, and a lot of great resources there. I know they stay really dialed into the community and what's available.
So with my company, we focus a lot on the digital transformation. So the comment you made about how this is a journey, that's something that resonates greatly with me. And so when I think of a journey when it comes to digitizing factories, there's usually roadblocks and there's foundations that you need to establish in which you can build from. So in the journey to getting towards CMMC, how complex is that first step? And can you give a crude understanding of some like the cost breakdowns or the options? Are there tools people can buy that can help them start this journey before they have to shell out a tremendous amount of money into consultants, or is that the first thing that they need to do?
Yeah, 206-38. No, sorry. There are quite a number of organizations in the Seattle area that are out there to help, that range from a huge team of folks to onesie twosies. There's lots of folks out there ready to help. I can't stress enough that it starts at the top, right? I said that before. If you haven't thought about it at all, start by getting signed up for Impact Washington's free cybersecurity training. It's really good stuff, where you kind of get your head around where you're at, and then start with that culture, right? Understand that it is not something you can outsource. You can outsource help to get there, but you've got to be in there and doing it. It's about culture, people, process. I can't stress that enough. The technology part's important, but it's just part of it. Then I'm seeing a lot of models out there that involve some kind of supportive software. And I keep plugging my friend Mark Berman over at FutureFeed, but I really truly believe that FutureFeed is the best tool set out there. It's designed for a business person to use it, and it is designed to walk you through step by step by step how to get there. You talk about this system security plan. It is dozens and dozens and dozens of questions that you've got to check off and know you have the answer to know that you're dealing with it. And this FutureFeed doesn't just help you along the way, right? But it explains what the questions are and why they're there and what they are. And then it provides the tool sets to spit out the forms that you need to provide that to the CMMC people to validate what you're doing and everything. So I highly encourage people to take a look at FutureFeed or other softwares like that. The other day we were on a call with some folks that were a sub to Boeing, and Boeing uses, I'm spacing on the name of it, I think it's called ExoStar. They have all kinds of tool sets within that for compliance and what have you, but they have a CMMC assistant in there, so you might take a look at some of those types of things.
So Dave, we've gone through a gap assessment. We're going down our CMMC journey, like I mentioned earlier. And we need help, right? We're not going to do it all internally.
Sure.
So my question to you is, because it feels like the wild, wild west out there, how do we validate the credentials of a consultant? How do we know that they're going to provide, that they're prepared to provide the right kind of support, and not just somebody who's kind of jumping on the bandwagon and trying to chase some dollars because they know everybody needs to go down the CMMC path?
Yeah. That's not a really easy question to answer because it's all still very much in flux. But yeah, you can request, certifications of the folks that you're working with and where they're out on the pathway for sure. And you're going to find a huge delta in cost depending on how much certifications they have and how many people are certified, that kind of stuff. But yeah, you can request, what certifications do you have? Where are you at? How far are you on the CMMC path? Are you certified yourself? Things like that.
Are there any specific credentials to look out for?
You're outside of my realm on the details of that. I'd have to ask my CMMC guy and get back to you. I'm not up on what the actual terminologies are. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I've spoken with a lot of folks, and a lot of folks that I know are really good and could be very helpful. I've also seen a lot of emails come through from a lot of other people that say they can help us, and it just feels like there's kind of a gold rush going on from the consultant world into the CMMC world.
Yeah, there sure is. It was a good question. I'm sorry I didn't have the exact answer for you there.
No, I think it was all very valuable on that one. So if I understand this correctly, so the executives that are watching this right now, basically, if they have any desire to continue to work with the federal government or be a supplier of somebody that is doing such, this is something that needs to become a high priority, and it starts with a conversation. So potentially with you, Dave, potentially with other people, but it seems like the first step is that they need to reach out and begin a conversation so they could figure out what the next step is. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. I mean, I know I've plugged Impact Washington numerous times, but I think reaching out to them is a really great place to start.
Okay.
I can't stress enough how important it is this be something that's adopted from the top down. It can't be, the CEO can't outsource it to even somebody in their own organization, right? You've got to be on top of it and understand how critical it is. If you think you're going to be bidding a project that touches CUI in the next 3 to 6 months, you need to start now.
So then, Dave, how about take a moment? What was that phone number that you were trying to plug earlier in this call?
Oh, yeah, you can call us at 206-388-3084. or email us at sales@cyberstreams.com. Somebody will get back to you right away.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I know that this was a big talking point at camps, so I'm hoping that you get some people reaching out to you, because it'd be very advantageous for the Pacific Northwest if we really get this thing figured out. Dave,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.